it's really mutual. The mycorrhizal network, sort of a network of fungi, is actually benefiting the plants and the trees are benefiting the fungi. And so it's really a mutual network. And that's one of the patterns we can find in nature. It's good for you and it's good for me. If we go further, you also find a pattern in nature where simple things can be made into complex things. So I can take atoms, they make molecules, they make cells, cells make organs, organs make systems, systems make you, you and I make us. Very simple layered complexity where simple things can be converted into big complex things out in the wild. And I think this is another point. If you're building mobile solutions, think about little building blocks that other people can build new things out of. This idea of what they call semantic layering or layered complexity in the geek world. The other thing we find is that most of the stuff just talks to each other. Every cell in your body is mostly peer-to-peer. It's not client-server. It's not the cloud. If you cut your foot, a signal doesn't go up to your brain and say, hey, please help fix this cut. You might get a pain signal, but mostly the neighbors, the cells around you, lay down a grid work and fix it. And I think we're going to see this a lot more as well in the age of trillions. We're going to see a lot of devices that just work together. We've started to see things like Bitcoin and people being able to share information and money and other things between devices directly peer-to-peer. And I think we're going to see that happen in a big way in the future. It just turns out that is the way that you build resilient systems that can't fail. Another pattern is redundancy. So if you look at this word, I bet everybody knows what the word says, even though I cut off half of the word. And it turns out we find it in language, we find it in systems. I could get hit by a car, I could be hurt pretty badly, and I'm probably still going to keep breathing. I'll still keep going. I have massive amounts of redundancy. Very unlike, if you hurt one transistor on a mobile phone today, the whole thing dies. And so there's this notion that resiliency and redundancy might sound bad, but it turns out to be really powerful. And in marketing, I think you need to be looking for how are the redundant and overlapping ways that we get our message through. The reason language has this redundancy is because you never know how noisy the channel is for you to communicate on. It turns out if I block off the bottom of the word information, you can't actually tell as easily what's happening. And if I cut off the left or the right, it turns out that there are some patterns in there. And a lot of this just has to do with sort of almost what I would call a beautiful complexity. This is the way that nature has figured out how to solve complexity and come up with ways that is sort of amazing and allow every flower to bloom. I have one last thing I want to talk about in the sort of space of beautiful complexity. It's called generativity. Generativity is sort of this pattern. It's almost a pattern of process instead of